Hello again. I know that we had to change our dates and times. Hope that didn't deter anybody from taking the modules, but we're happy to be here on a Friday afternoon with you. Joy and I are together again. You guys have met Joy Burris on our national team, and Joy and I work together a lot with a lot of our states and on conference and all sorts of things. So today is actually called transition from school and students to project search and interns and to workplace and employees. And Joy is going to get us started.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us today and hope you're having a great day so far. I think that it'll get better. So, just as Susie said, we're going to be talking about this transition period between the time students are in high school to the time that they're employees. So, to connect to the purpose of our training today, we are going to watch a video and we're going to hear from a Project Search graduate and his family. The graduate's name is Jabin, Jabin. This is one of my very favorite videos. While we're watching it, I would like you to think about what assisted in Jabin's transition from being a student to an intern to an employee. And you will even get to see some childhood pictures of Jabin and hear some concerns that his family had. And then how do you think each of the partners played a role in his successful transition? So remember that Project Search is all about collaborative partnerships. And we've got a little pie graph here to show you all the different partners. And so watch it from your vantage point, from whatever partner you are. And hopefully you will see that it takes all of us to get Project Search up and going. And you'll have to let me know if you can hear the video.
When you were in high school, what did you want to do in the future? Like, did you have goals of getting a job?
I honestly didn't even know.
Jabin was a handful. Behavior issues started coming out at 3 or 4. We ended up going to a neuropsychologist and they diagnosed him with autism. But with the diagnosis, you start thinking, what's this going to look like for him as an adult? All of a sudden, it's different. You have different goals. It was tough, and it still is, because his path is different. I just saw the potential for what Project Search could be for so many young adults.
Project Search is an internship program for young adults with disabilities. The goal of Project Search is employment, ultimately. At the end, they want to get not just a job, but a career. In the training center, the interns focus on employability skills, so they'll cover financial literacy, they'll cover soft skills such as showing up on time, being accountable in their work, working as a team, things that any employer would want.
I learned how to work in a professional environment as well as communicating with other people. That was one of the things I always struggled with.
We offer multiple different internships within the hospital and get job experiences that they can carry to the rest of their life.
What is your favorite job you've done?
Right where I'm sitting right now.
Jabin's been just a fit-in from day one. He's good at running the lawnmowers and the trimmers. He's been a very big help. He grew so much with the time we've had him. It's just phenomenal because he's just a self-starter. He jumps right in and he's very knowledgeable in the grounds field. It's been a great experience all the way through.
Jabin wowed me probably every day. I definitely see him as a leader, as a department manager in management someday. He has what it takes, maybe not tomorrow, but that's where he's headed, given the opportunity.
Until Project Search, we never thought Jabin would do a lot of things. And now he's able to do many things most adults do. It's that simple.
I just see him walking with his head up, and he has pride. And that's what you want for your children, is for them to be okay within their own skin. He's okay in his own skin. And that's what I wanted him to be, is the man he could be. And he's there, thanks to Project Search.
I'm very proud of who I've become.
So let's just talk a few minutes about what were the things that assisted Jabin as he went from a high school student all the way to employee.
I mean, the support that he had was was obviously a very big piece of it. Having the family support and having the family, believe that he could do this and wanted him to do it. I think that's a huge part of it.
Yes, and if we look back at this pie graph, you can see that the intern and the families obviously were well represented in this. Who were some of the other people that were represented in the video? Other partners?
His mentor or the person in his department that he worked with seemed to be a huge part of it, believing in him.
Yes, the gentleman with the blue eyes. That's what I noticed when I watched his videos, those blue eyes. He seemed very instrumental in the whole process. I would imagine that Jabin did an internship in that department and fell in love. And I think it was so cool that they actually showed a picture of him on a little John Deere tractor when he was a kid, and then followed through with that as he is an employer. And so many times our kids dream about what they're going to be, and it's neat when they can realize those dreams. So now let's think about some behind the scenes partners. What were some of the partners that were behind the scenes that had to be there? Otherwise, Jabin wouldn't have been able to realize and be involved in Project Search.
And he would have had to have like vocational rehab and, DD services.
Yes. And even education. I mean, he would have had to have been involved with the education partner so that he could actually become part of the Project Search program in that area. So we see that it just takes every single person, including that host business where the program is embedded, to make Project Search a success. And without that collaboration and partnership, it just can't happen. So that's something that we all know that is just super important. So we're going to talk about we already talked a little bit about the different perspective that we come with, but here is a depiction of how we all wear different lenses and have different frames of where we're coming from. So we have the family perspective and the intern's perspective, and they are pretty much the same. You can see they're the same color, but the intern's lens is a little bit different. And then we have the educational organization, rehab, the community rehab partner or provider, and then all the other partners, and then we have the host business. And we have the host business having the black lenses and black frames. And what happens when we start to open a Project Search program is we have this new pair of lenses. So these are the Project Search lenses. So we have the lens that comes with all those different perspectives, and we have the frame work of the host business. And by listening to and considering others' thoughts and others' perspectives, we can put on this new lens, the Project Search lens. And it's just so beneficial to be able to look at through all those perspectives, and in your steering committee meetings, be able to really play on each other's strengths and be able to have the strongest team possible. The Project Search lens, there's critical differences between the schools and business environment. So if you just close your eyes for a minute and just think about how a high school hallway sounds. If you're an instructor, maybe you were in a high school earlier, just think about how noisy it is. Think about how the relationships that are going on in the hallways. You probably got people, like holding hands. You probably have people arm in arm. You probably have people running, yelling, laughing out loud. And then if you kind of switch and go to a business hallway and think about what a business hallway looks like, it's completely different feel. Everything about it is different. Everything about it feels serious and professional. The actions of the people walking around are professional. And that is what we really are trying to get across in this training, is that there is a huge difference between the high school student and the employee working in a business. And just the fact that Project Search is set in that host business gives that great framework about how the individuals that are there act differently. And that's one of the great learnings that the interns take away from that host business, is if they are able to interact with people and model people in the host business, so that they can gain a complete understanding of what it's like to be working in a host business. And we know that even in the individual departments, there's a little bit of a cultural difference. And we know that it's the same. And that's something that Project Search interns are able to learn, is even the different cultures within the same business.
Joy, when you said close your eyes and think about the high school, before I became the special ed director and I was at one of our campuses, we all had lunch duty and it was different things. Well, mine was the girls' bathroom.
Oh, God.
And we talk about difference between the girls' bathroom in a high school and the girls' bathroom in our hospitals or Fifth Third Bank. I mean, girls would, I'm sorry, they would stand on the toilet and smoke, and they thought you didn't know it. Like, okay. So anyway, yes, big differences.
Are you going to start sharing?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about the girls' bathroom where my mind was. So we also have to think about, I'm going to share my screen because Joy and I both have our PowerPoints up. So when I think about Project Search, one of the things that we kind of want everybody to know and be able to articulate is the core model fidelity components. And it's really based on not just the Project Search model, but helping all of us transition from thinking about our students as students to thinking about them as interns, and then thinking about them as employees. So first and foremost, our outcome is competitive integrated employment. When you think about your school, if you are an education person, the goal at school is to graduate. It wasn't necessarily to get a job. If somebody got a job, that was great. But what we talked about in school was our graduation exits, our graduation requirements. Do they have enough credits to graduate? I mean, that was always the big thing, not is there a job for Diane somewhere? We never even talked about that. We might have talked about programs that they could go to, but we didn't talk about employment. So that's one of the first big differences between Project Search and school, is just that our goal is all about employment, not about graduation. We do focus on serving young adults who will benefit from that intensive year of those internship experiences. That's who we care about. That's who we serve. The program is a collaborative partnerships. I'm not saying that schools aren't collaborative. I think they're really collaborative, and I think they're getting better all the time. But our collaboration is based on what partners do we need to reach that goal of competitive employment. Whereas schools partners might be who do they need a partnership with to make sure that students graduate and graduate successfully. Not good, not bad, just different. The program is business focused. So we're very, very focused on what's the business culture, what's the business rules, what's the business code of conduct, all of those things, so that, again, that we reach that goal. Whereas the school's focus, again, is academics. And that is what it is. And then also, the extracurriculars and things like that. But for the most part, they're focused on academics and getting students through those academic classes and requirements. And for the most part, getting the large majority of students ready for college, even though that doesn't typically mean the students that we are focusing on. The program leads to acquisition of competitive skills. So we're all about skills, not credits, not classes, but skills, and skills that will be transferable to a competitive environment or a competitive job. So again, that little bit of difference between acquisition of competitive skills versus acquisition of kind of academic knowledge. And then we're committed to continuous improvement. Um, if I think about continuous improvement, like for us overall at the national level, is to do things like this, is to get out training. It's to help you have new tools and resources like we've been doing during the pandemic to work on our new curriculum, things like that, which is great for you for continuous improvement. For individual programs, it might mean your outcome of employment. So if you got 80% last year, can we get to 90? If you had 10 applications, can you get 12 applications? If you have, I don't know, 20 internships, can you get another one in a department that you've always wanted to be in, like maybe pharmacy or IT or something like that? Schools certainly are committed to continuous improvement. Just thinking about the school that I was at for so long, we certainly cared about our graduation rate, and we cared about how many students were going on to college. We cared about quality of instruction. So again, not bad or good, just we have different goals. And when you have different goals, then you have different increments to get you there. And so I think it's important just to think about the things that are important to Project Search are probably very different than might be important to even some of our partners, because everything goes back to this goal right here, to number one. How do we get there? Hang on, I'm going to close this door. That's what happens when you work at home. You have some conflicting people. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about the Just Right Challenge. And we know that we have our students for 9 months. That's what we have. We have 9 months. We have 10 weeks in each internship and 3 internships. So we need to challenge our students. We need to ensure that they are getting every possible skill that they can get. So this Just Right Challenge is something that I think happens in probably lots and lots of areas. Certainly it happens in education. Certainly it happens in business. But how do we help students kind of stretch and get to the next level? So the Just Right Challenge was something based on the work of Jean Ayers. She's an occupational therapist, and she talked about selecting a task that's above the intern's current performance, but not so much above that they're going to be frustrated. So I know we've talked about this a little bit in some of our other TTFS modules, but we want you to just keep thinking about that. So we're at the end of the school year, and you might have 2 or 3 weeks left. Is there a way you can layer on one more skill or stretch in a certain area to gain that one more important skill that they might need for competitive employment? It might be a work skill. It might be an employability skill. It might be something like more communication or better eye contact, or it might mean working faster or having more quality in a certain area. So our challenge is to select tasks that are kind of that just right. Think about Goldilocks, right? Not too hot, not too cold, but just right. So selecting tasks that are just above their current level, that they need to stretch a little more. This is a great picture of one of our interns at Cincinnati Children's, Eric, and he is on his tippy toes. So look at that number 4. That new skill that you're working on can be mastered if you focus, and kind of that standing on that tippy toes. And you've had that feeling before, right? Where you just want to stretch. Everybody stretch just a little bit. So, right? Just stretch a little bit and know that maybe I can reach it if I just stretch a little bit higher. if that intern struggles as you support them, you might have to, go back down to where you were before. Or maybe it's just modifying that task, or maybe a picture checklist. For me, I would need a step stool. If you guys have met me in person, I'm pretty short, so just a little step stool. I can get what I need. Also, these correspond to the colors of the Vogue Fit if you're using that. So we always want to start any task with what they can do. And in education, we call those anchoring skills, right? Something that they already know, something that they're comfortable with, something they can kind of hang their hat on and say, I can do this. And then in Vogue Fit, those yellow skills in the middle, we call those emerging skills. So how can you build on those emerging skills? I would think about taking that list of emerging skills on my interns list and showing them to the manager to say, which ones are most important? Which ones should we focus on? Now, you want to continue to add tasks that they struggle with. Those are those kind of salmon colored tasks on the Vogue Fit. And red means I have to stop. I have to think about this. I have to maybe develop something again, maybe an accommodation, or maybe that student just needs to practice. And maybe we can do some practicing back in the training room, or maybe somewhere outside the internship, maybe a more quiet area where they can focus. But red doesn't mean I shouldn't go there. When you're sitting at a traffic light and it's red, you're going to go eventually. It might be a little while depending on traffic, but you're going to go. You just need to kind of stop, take a breather, think about what's next, and then you can get going again with that intern. All right, so you guys might have seen this before too, but this is the journey that our interns are going to take. So Joy asked you to close your eyes for a minute, but just think about your intern right now. You're at the end of the school year, so you're kind of down here actually in this journey to work. But if we think about the beginning of the year, so think about your interns in August or September when you started. And, what did they have to do to get to Project Search? They had to fill out an application. They had to complete a skills interview. I don't know how you did it last year being virtual, probably different ways. They had to figure out how they were going to get there. Are they going to take the bus? Are they going to travel independently? They had to complete all kinds of steps required by the host business. If that was a background check or a TB test or something like that. You might have had a welcome event where they got to meet you and your team. And then all of these blue puzzle pieces are during the Project Search year. Here's our employment planning meetings. Here's our first internship, our second internship, our third internship. So this is the year that you are just finishing. You're probably right about here. And we're also thinking about job search activities right now, attending the graduation, which might be soon. I would guess for some of you. I got an invitation to a virtual graduation tomorrow in North Carolina. And then keeping that team posted. So that intern is kind of waiting for interviews to be set up and different things that might be happening. So this is just from the intern's perspective. What are all the things that they have to do to get to Project Search, to participate in Project Search, and then to get that job? I think I did send this handout to Kristen. This is a great handout to give families and just maybe to hang in your classroom next year and help the students see kind of where they are on their journey to work. Questions, thoughts? You guys are quiet. It's Friday afternoon.
I mean, Susie, the one thing that you were talking about a little bit earlier, because I've started going to some of the sites, like my travel restrictions were lifted, so I've been able to visit, is just seeing things through different lenses. You know what I mean? I've had to do a lot of shifting myself of the way that I think about things in this position. And, I was just in a meeting yesterday and it was about supported decision making here in South Carolina. And, I'm not a parent, I don't have kids of my own at all. So I always have to remember, first off, I don't know what it's like to have that at home all the time, but then to add a disability on top of it, or one or more children on top of it. So I've tried to do my, shifting of thinking throughout the whole process. Cause there was another woman in there that was talking about it. She's like, just sometimes it's so hard to keep up, with everything that's going on. Cause she had two pretty severely disabled children of her own at home and she's working on top of it. So trying to balance everything. So I really like the idea of something like this being up, and so everybody can just see it and have that visual of these are the goals. This is generally a timeline of where we're going to need to be at throughout the whole year.
Yeah, I almost wish you could blow it up and have like a post-it for every student with their names on it. So you almost like a marker, like a game marker, and you could kind of take them along through that journey. So thanks, Diane. That's
Sure.
it is I mean, it's hard enough to do our job from our perspective, and then thinking about doing it from our students' perspective is
Well, everybody's, I've realized, VR, DDSN, the school district, everybody's very used to doing things their way, you know what I mean? And knowing the way that they do things. And sometimes, like I said, we all have to kind of shift every once in a while and be like, okay, let's think about it from other lenses. And how is the, I've learned a lot from going to all of these sites just to see how different the districts and the counties run and everything like that. So, yeah, that once you said lenses, I was like, yep, I know exactly how that goes.
absolutely, yeah. Okay, so again, kind of back to those lenses again, just considering those examples of the differences between school and work, and with Project Search kind of in that middle goal. So it's really important for all of our teams to consider and respect the perspectives of each. And Joy mentioned culture. Culture is really important. And I guess what I saw during the pandemic is that people's cultures shifted somewhat. I know ours did at Cincinnati Children's to, it was really a no-no to work from home. Like it wasn't at all, I don't want to say allowed. It just wasn't a thing.
Encouraged. It wasn't encouraged.
Encouraged. Thank you. At all. And now it's like, why go back? Besides travel, and when, that probably won't happen for another couple months at least. So just thinking about that culture and revisiting that, especially with the pandemic over. Oh, well, I shouldn't say over, it's not over, but as the pandemic changes, let's put it that way. So thinking about all your partners, VR, um, your DD organizations, your schools, your host businesses, for sure, they have changed significantly, probably more than so many else. So kind of you might want to revisit those lenses and those perspectives as you end the year, and the next year as you finish, as you kind of start again, and use that collaborative lens. I love this image of all the stripes, um, kind of that rainbow almost, but it's all the colors of the Project Search logo, if you haven't guessed that already. But, how can we see it from everyone's perspectives? Because perception is reality. So if I perceive one thing, that's my reality for now. And you have to help me change that if it's a lot different.
Well, and just Susie, just to piggyback off that really quick, because the one thing for me is I've been in the field for so long, and I totally admit that I have gotten frustrated at parents. I'm like, why are they not returning calls? Why do they not return the paperwork? Why do they not do this? And I realize sometimes you're going to get the families where it is kind of slacking a little bit, but then I do need to remember that there are other days that I'm like, these families just want to survive this day and just get through the whole day and everything like that. So it's just like, that's a lens for me that has had to really like change and alter. And I've had to learn patience throughout that whole process, just because, I know I'm on a deadline, but again, I have to look at it like, I know there's plenty of families out there that it's just like, we just got to make it through the day. That's all we got to
struggle. And
yeah.
they may have multiple children with other issues too, and not just disabilities. Just raising kids is a full-time job, and just getting them where they need to go. And you're right. Just
and to throw the pandemic in the middle of all of it at the same time, like, yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what can we do in Project Search to create that successful transition? So we're going to think about 4 environments, if you will, or 4 areas, that's a better word, that where our student is transitioning. 4 big areas. One is the environment. Joy's going to talk more about that. One is support strategies. And we certainly know that from schools, all the different supports that schools can have. One is expectations and discipline for students that might have crossed some line. And then the other one is transportation and independence. So let's look at that from school and work.
Do you want to just leave it up,
Sure.
Susie? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the environment. So again, we already kind of pictured in our mind's eye what the physical structure of a school looks like compared to the workplace. And it's fun to listen to y'all talk and listen to Diane, how she has kind of shifted her thinking because of looking through a different lens than other people look through. So as we think about the environment, the physical, the social, the dress, think of all those different things that are different from a school to a workplace. And then think about, with your Project Search lens, how you are going to positively impact the interns to be able to physically have a different environment that they've been used to probably for the last 12 or 13 years, and how it's going to be different. A lot of times it may be a more comfortable environment because it's not quite as chaotic as a workplace environment compared to a high school. It's going to be a little more quiet. It's going to just be a little calmer. And the social aspects, let's think about that for a little bit. In a high school, they're with people around the same age. A lot of times, all those around them look like those around them. There's romantic relationships. There's clubs and activities and events in a high school. Now, as they go through the Project Search year, we need to get them used to multiple generations working together, the diversity that a workplace environment brings with it. Romance, hugging, things like that is not usually it may be socially acceptable, but many businesses don't encourage certainly the romance, and we really want to discourage the hugging in the Project Search year, so that they understand that a fist bump, COVID is going to kind of change this a little bit, because I doubt there will be nearly as much hugging as there once was. But that's something that can really be confusing to a Project Search person or intern, because I know one of the departments that I worked in at Cincinnati Children's, part of the department was huggy and part of the department was not huggy at all. And of course, the interns are picking up all that's going on around them, and it becomes kind of a conflicting signal. So as we're having them in the Project Search classroom, we want to make sure that we are kind of discouraging that hugging and giving other ways to be friendly with people. let's think about the dress. Often in a high school, unless there is a special dress code, it can be pretty lenient. Special exceptions are made. And then when you're in the business environment, the whole business's brand is impacted by how their employees dress in the workplace. So we want them to match what the dress is of the host business, especially those IDs that are so important to be showing for people in the workplace. All right, let's go to the next one. The support strategies and staff. So when I think about this one, I think about that nurse that you had growing up in your high school or your elementary school. I actually taught in the elementary school that I went to with a lot of the same teachers, and Nurse Barbie was there, and everybody knew they could go to Nurse Barbie and she would make everything all better. Well, when we are in the project search year, we really have to encourage the interns to know who to go to and know for what they need to go to whom for. And so it's important that they are clear on who their supervisors and managers are, and they also understand what they should go to those supervisors or managers for. That's one of the things that as you're taking them through the project search year, you're going to want to coach them not only on the skills that they are learning, but those soft skills of knowing how to relate properly to their managers or mentors. Often in a high school, that an individual might have a one-to-one aide that's employed by the school and assigned to that student. And so the project search year is going to actually help them change from having the expectation of having a one-to-one aide to being more independent. And that's something that we really want to stress that independence. As they gain independence, kind of pull away from them so that they can experience complete independence by the end of the program. Another thing in a high school when they're a student is they may be able to go see specialists throughout the day for things that may come up. And so again, we need to teach them strategies for when they become overwhelmed. I was a manager at Cincinnati Children's and actually had an internship rotation in my department. And one of the interns, when she came through, she had an anxiety issue. And so when she was in the classroom, the project search classroom, she would just run out of the classroom. And so Tina, our instructor, said, you can't do that. We have to come up with strategies. And so Tina made sure that she told me, the manager, about this strategy. And so what they had decided upon is when the young lady would become overwhelmed, she would be able to go to the restroom without telling anybody for 5 minutes, but she had to come back in 5 minutes, and she had to take the path to the restroom that came past my door. So I could kind of keep a mental note of when she was leaving. She always came back after 5 minutes. She was always, she had gathered herself. And so Tina, the instructor, did a great job of teaching her that stress technique that she could use when she did become stressed. That same intern, I just thought of this, Susie, I've told this story before, but this same intern actually changed the way that we were doing the letters. They mailed out letters. So she changed the way that the envelopes were stacked in the big tub. And the mailroom called me and they said, you changed something. What did you change? And so we figured out that it was the envelope flap was down. And they said that it made all the difference in the mailroom and made the job go so much faster in there. So, this intern was able to do something different than we had ever done in that job, and she impacted the next department down the line. So that was really an exciting part of her being able to be an intern and seeing that success. All right, next slide. So performance and discipline. Schools reward effort. You get those report cards. and how often have we heard you get an A for effort? They find alternative methods to help a student if a student is not, if they're having challenges. Parents are typically informed of what's going on in the school, and they're involved in the process. So Project Search Year comes, and you have to kind of separate that for the parents and the intern. So in a workplace, the employers Employers reward results by giving them their employees' salaries. They want safety. They want quality. They want productivity. That business need is there no matter who is doing that job. The manager is, charged with making sure the job gets completed safely and done well. So that's something that we have to work on during the project search year. And you can start out slow. If you go to a manager and they say, oh, it doesn't matter how many they get done, just as long as they learn the task, it's important to clarify that and come up with a standard so that the intern has something to gauge how they're doing. That's really, really important, so that you can actually measure those results and continually improve those results. Parents are not typically involved in the workplace. I do have to say with Project Search, sometimes when I was actually able to hire some of the Project Search graduates, and sometimes we would communicate with the parents just to make sure that they were getting everything that they needed. But for the most part, you're kind of taking this Project Search year to kind of distance the parents so that the intern and the graduate has a good understanding of what it's like in a workplace, and knowing that the parents can't come in and make everything okay. So another really important part is that behavior is an expectation. At school, that one of the things they work on, my sister is a special education teacher, and one of the things that they work on is you can't run away off of the playground today. You have to stay on the playground. And that's not an option in a workplace. That's just an expectation that you are going to behave and follow the rules like everyone around you is following. And that's another reason that Project Search being hosted in the workplace is a really great way, because they're getting modeling of that every day wherever they look. So let's go on. Is there anything you want to add to that, Susie?
No, I think we're good there. I think, again, those rules are so important that and I know you guys do this, but that we really spend time teaching the code of conduct, if you will call it that, of the host business, and knowing that they have to comply. And Joy and I have talked this numerous times, that there are certain things that are non-negotiable. One of them, stealing.
Mm-hmm.
You could steal $2 or $200, and most likely you would be fired, especially if they have it on camera. We've had students certainly fired for stealing before. And the other thing is not always, but oftentimes, swearing. And then the third one is anything that's perceived as sexual harassment.
He had one. That's the one that I was going to say. Unfortunately, we did have an incident like that. And it was like, if he would have been in school, probably wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But because it's a whole different environment, he was in HR, and that all kind of, it was one of those lessons, unfortunately, he had to learn, but he had to follow the same policy as everyone else.
Right. And I think what you just said, Diane, is the crux of what we're trying to say. If he would have been in school, it wouldn't have been a problem. Well, in some ways, that's a problem.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
We're not preparing them. If every time they do anything, that's not a problem. Well, then they don't understand, and there's no consequence.
No, because what was happening, I guess, was more acceptable in that environment, in the school environment. And I think a lot of people saw it as more like funny and silly and everything like that. But once he got into the work environment, there was a couple of women that did not find it very humorous. And that's when he ended up in HR.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. We've had that experience in a really terrible way happen with
Mhm.
a couple of our interns and graduates as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we can.
Yeah. And then transportation and independence. I don't know if you guys are in rural environments or um, if you have city busing and that's the way they get to Project Search, but you know that that is a really, really important part of Project Search is teaching them how to get places um, because the school bus isn't going to come by and pick them up once they get that job. So do you guys, how do you do your transportation um, in your Project Search sites?
Majority of our sites are, the intern is responsible for their own transportation. We do have some areas like Columbia that has like a transportation system. We do have some that have paratransits, but there are still a couple of sites that I know are using the school bus, but we're trying to push away from that. But those are a lot of the ones that are in the most rural areas. So transportation in South Carolina has been an ongoing issue for, I'm sure, all across the country, but it is definitely a very big issue here.
Right, and that is true in many of our states that have those rural areas. I have some of the western states, and I didn't realize there was a difference between. I got a lesson in the frontier areas, so those are where houses are about 15 miles apart instead of 5 or 2 miles apart. So we have those problems, or not problems, but challenges in a lot of different Project Search communities. So we just need to make sure that we're teaching the independence. We had a really nice story out of one of our Project Search programs where a graduate actually started an Uber business and then was able to transport interns to the Project Search site. And so it was just a great opportunity for the young man to have his own business and help out the Project Search interns along the way. So remember, when a student is transported to school, that there's usually a monitor of some sort, whether it's an actual monitor, an additional person on the bus, but certainly the bus driver monitors the behavior of the students. When they're on a school bus or on a public transportation, that's often not there. So that's something we need to work on during that Project Search year. And even if it starts where they're busing at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, we really need to make sure that they've had some good travel training or come up with some good solutions along throughout the year to be able to get to that to their work site or get them where they can walk or something like that.
Just to give this team just a little, the task that I work under, they're planning like we were looking at our year-long goals and everything like that, and transportation is really something that we're going to try to be hitting on as much as we possibly can because it has been such a barrier. So, keep that in mind that in the next few months, we're going to be having some trainings coming up, and hopefully we would love to connect with Uber and Lyft a little bit more and see if we could get some things happening in, the rural areas. It's just, I am on some of the sites where it is the school buses. I get it. And I'm so glad that they're going to the sites and they're learning these skills. But then when it comes to when they're finished, are they going to be able to get to the job? Like, it's a whole different story. So if we could, we're really trying to focus on that barrier if possible, because it's been the worst forever.
Yes. All righty. Back to you, Susie.
Okay, so enough of just looking at our slides. We want to do some interaction. So we're going to think about transitions from all of these areas that we just talked about: environment, dress, culture, transportation, behavior, etc. And we're going to work through a little story about Zach as a whole group. So we need lots of participation. And then we're going to take two other young people and put you into breakout groups so that you can talk about them more. So we're going to look at Zach, and if you have the handout, that's great. And if not, we'll just read some of it. So Hannah, can I ask you to read some of these windows about Zach?
Yeah, sure. Um, Zach's story at age 18 on the autism spectrum and accepted onto Project Search. Zach sometimes gets frustrated learning new. Zach likes
You
video.
probably say tasks.
I was gonna say it's blank. Zach likes video games and is interested in working in IT. Sometimes when he is frustrated, Zach gets angry and yells. People say he is having an outburst.
I love that, an outburst. I have outbursts. I don't know about anybody else, but.
And Zach likes to wear the same clothes every day, a t-shirt and black jeans.
Okay. Does anybody have the handout pulled up? Or the handout there about Zach?
I'll get it pulled up, Susie, if you want
Okay.
to go ahead and search.
I'm going to stop share, Joy, and let you share the rest of that handout then.
Okay.
So we're going to need some ideas about what would we do to get Zach to the point where he can either be in Project Search or be successful in Project Search and work toward a job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Tina, would you read the ones that are right there about his house and where he lives? Thanks, Rhonda. Bye. Have a good weekend.
His family?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead. I didn't see another Tina, and I thought she was talking about my assistant. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was talking about Tina Forte because she's right on the screen. Sorry.
His family, that's where his family thinks Project Search is a good step for Zach. His family helped Zach apply and coached him through the process. His mom asked if Zach could continue wearing jeans and a t-shirt and not wear the same uniform as the other interns, as he feels more comfortable that way. His dad brings him to class in the morning and his mom picks him up in the afternoon.
All right. And then Karen, are you still on the line? Karen Lockerman, maybe she's not. What about Cheryl Johnson? Are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Can you read this last line about this is supposed to be a school building? So can you read these 4 boxes about the school?
Certainly. Zach was mostly quiet at school. If Zach got frustrated, his teachers let him have 10 minutes to play video games, and that usually calmed him down. Zach liked to be with his tech geeks at school. Zach could concentrate really well on things he's interested in.
Okay, so that's what we know about Zach. So it says down at the bottom that you can make changes if you want, but we're not. We're just going to talk about what we know about Zach already. So these are the things that we have, and we want Zach to get prepared to be in Project Search. And let's just say it's right now, and Zach's going to be an intern in your class next year. What kind of transitions or resources or activities might you do to help him get ready and have a great day or a great year at Project Search? What do you guys think about the uniform? Would you?
That would be something like I think that would need, knowing that information would be prep work prior to, being on site, just because I get it. I don't like, what I mean, wearing certain things either, but but I don't feel like they should make the exception if that's the uniform. So to be able to practice in advance and prep him for it, and maybe, if you need to desensitize him prior to it. That was the one thing that really, there's a lot of different things in here, but that's the one that stood out to me the most.
I guess that would be a non-negotiable in a hospital setting with everyone wearing certain colors of uniforms. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Any other things? So, Diane talked about desensitizing him. Cheryl said, "Too bad, so sad. That's what he's got to wear." But other ideas about that uniform? What else could you do over the summer?
Get him a uniform so he could start wearing it.
Yeah, and which is like the day, that's kind of what I meant by like the desensitizing him part of it, is like slowly getting him to like, all right, we're gonna try on this shirt today. And like, even if it's a little bit of a process, as long as he's wearing it by the time he gets to that internship, I think that would be great.
Yeah, right. Somebody we did this module earlier this week for another group, and somebody mentioned maybe he could wear his black t-shirt under his uniform, and that way he'd still have that comfort of wherever he likes those black t-shirts, he would have that. What
That
about?
would depend on hygiene, though.
Oh, well,
as well.
You're all right. Yes, that's true.
If he's wearing the same black t-shirt, that would be an issue in and of itself.
Right.
Have to be
You'd have
addressed.
to negotiate a new t-shirt every day, a new black shirt every day. What else? What about that last part about school? What would you have to work on to make that good transition from school to project search?
Okay, the one thing that stood out to me here, and it was like, if Zach got frustrated, his teacher let him have 10 minutes to play video games, and that usually calms him down. Well, I understand that, but that's also not the proper way of going about things, because he's getting rewarded for bad behavior. So I think like trying to figure out like replacement behaviors when he gets frustrated, and that he's not getting reinforced for a negative behavior, and thinking of a different way, like how are we going to handle it or redirect when he gets frustrated. But that's I have to admit, that's like, because I was an ABA therapist for so long, that like that's one of the number one rules. You don't reinforce negative behavior.
I would like to think at the high school level, a teacher would be more sensible than that.
I mean, I would too. I definitely would too.
The first conversation needs to begin with that as special educator, because evidently there needs to be some re-education there, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Like that shouldn't even be an option right there in the high school, but that's just what stood out to me.
Right. Hope, what would you think about that part about transportation? What kind of things might we do? Where it says his dad brings him to class and his mom picks him up.
Actually brings him into the class. Is that what you're meaning in that box there?
So I think that just means mom drives him in the morning and dad drives him home. That's what I think it means. They're not like hand holding him in, but still.
It kind of sounds like to me they're hand holding him in. And that would be
thinking.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, if dad brings him into class, that's the perception. If they're just dropping off and picking up, that's acceptable. Many of our high schoolers are not drivers. They may have a permit, but not a driver's license. So if it's a just drop off and pick up, as long as they are looking at alternative instructing him on other modes of transportation, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if dad and mom are actually physically entering the building to bring him to and from, then that's another conversation that needs to begin with the school and the administration, because we're talking about high school and not kindergarten.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. We are going to break you up into breakout rooms. We're going to do 3 breakout rooms, and we have 2, I think, scenarios, for lack of a better word. So we've got Art and Angelina. And so here's a little bit about Angelina, and then the next one's about Art. So hopefully either somebody in your team has the handout, or I don't know. Do you guys have those at anybody have those with you? Or we can pull them up.
Okay, so Hannah and Diane does one more person have them?
I wasn't able to open it to print them.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just look at them real quick, just in case you don't. So here's Angelina. She's a non-reader. She has limited math skills. She needs assistance every day taking her medication. She's got a physical disability that affects her gait, balance, and stamina. She's good with people. She wants to work in healthcare. She wants to clean. She wants to get people drinks, make sure they're happy. She lives in an urban area in Section 8 housing with her mom and her grandma and 2 siblings. Currently, nobody in the house is employed. Her mom wants to work, but doesn't have time because of Angelina's medical needs and her 2 siblings. So mom would support Angelina getting a job, but just can't see how that's even possible. She's got a lot going on in her life. They don't have a working vehicle, but they do live near a bus line, and they qualify for government programs. Angelina was happy at school. She liked her teachers, and she had lots of good friends. She struggled with schoolwork because of her reading and math levels. She had support from an aide to take her medication at different parts of the day. So that's Angelina, and you're going to think about what are all the things we need to do to get Angelina ready for project search and then employment. So let's go down and look at Art. All right, so here's Art. He's in special ed, but never felt comfortable there. When he started Project Search, he excelled in the curriculum and did very well in his internships. He still was not sure that he even belonged with other Project Search interns, but was meeting other coworkers and department staff during his breaks and lunch. He had several labels, including developmental disabilities, ADHD, and he was diagnosed with a mental illness. He was interested in expanding some of his relationships personally, possibly even asking a coworker out on a date after work. They seemed like they really liked him. His teacher encouraged him to apply for Project Search. He was excited to leave the school classroom and work in a business. He wanted a job. He wanted money. He wanted to hang out with the other cool kids, but they did not always welcome him. However, his teacher told him to be nice to Art because of his disability. She thought it was best not to tell Art that the other boys didn't like being with him. Some of the staff at the host business noticed that Art was a bit too friendly at lunch. Since he had a disability, they just weren't sure how to respond. Some people thought he was watching them too closely and reported that behavior to HR. What we could do is have people take a picture of the questions for Angelina and a picture of the questions for Art. So if you could scroll back up to the pictures, or I'm sorry, yeah, the questions. So these are the Angelina questions. And don't worry about the thought bubble worksheets. Just kind of record your answers. And think about it again from different lenses. So like that number 2 says, what would each member of the team, including Angelina, need to consider if she was accepted?
Can you go back to the description of Angelina?
Sure. You want to take that picture too?
Yes.
You're so smart.
Okay.
Okay. Did you already get a picture of the questions?
Yes.
You're so good. Now we'll scroll down and you can take a picture of Art and Art's questions. You got that, Lynn, and everybody?
Yes.
All right, we'll go down. We'll take a picture of the questions.
Okay.
Okay. So my question, Kristen, can I put them into breakout rooms or do you need to?
Diane, we've talked about that, and I think she knows.
I think I can. Yeah. Give me 1 second.
I mean, I can. I just don't know that I'm not. I don't think I'm the host.
I think you are. You should be a co-host.
Yeah, since you're a co-host, you should be. I think you should be able to do that.
It's different. I don't see where to do that. I can't do it in security.
Kristen, are you able to switch me over as the host?
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay. And then I might be able to do it.
Usually I have options. Oh, maybe I can.
There you go, Diane.
Okay. Let's see.
So, Diane, if you don't mind doing 3 breakout rooms.
Okay. Let me see if I breakout rooms. Hold on. I'm trying to find because I'm trying to see if
I'm sorry. I usually have it's usually on my options, but it's not.
that's the same here, and that's what I'm. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Normally, there's something on the bottom when I click more. It says breakout rooms, but it doesn't even give me the option right now. So I'm not sure.
Kristen, can you do it?
I'm wondering if it's the way the Zoom was set up.
Might
So
be.
that would be my thought. Because I know we've done them with breakouts before. I can reach out to Mike because he'll know.
I think she might be right, and it's just the way that we had set up the Zoom, maybe. Because like normally there is something right on the bottom that just says breakout rooms, and then or if you go into participants, it should allow you to do it. But
I'm going to look at my settings, but I have a feeling that's what it is. I mean, I can set up a new Zoom if we want to.
Oh, that seems like a pain in the neck. I just know people really like breakouts because then more people are
more engaged
talking and working.
Yeah. I mean, is it okay, Susie, if we just do it all together as a group today, but we'll make sure that we go back if we need breakout rooms for next time?
Sure, but I'm going to call on people because I want everybody to try to participate.
Okay.
So if you don't mind me being like a teacher. All right, so let's talk about art and let's see if we can, no, let's go back to Angelina. Sorry, she's number 2. All right, so think about the whole steering committee, whether you're VR or the teacher or whoever, what things would the steering committee need to consider on whether they were going to accept Angelina to even come to assessment day? I'm going to call on Tina again because I can see her.
Me?
Yes, Tina Forte.
All right, go back to her again.
Okay.
What things for the steering
Joy,
committee?
are you there? Can you go back to Angelina? Thank you. So she's a non-reader. She's got
Yeah.
math.
As far as the medication part, couldn't there be something like a timer where that goes off at a certain point where she remembers to take her medicine?
That's a good idea.
She's good with people and she likes being like sort of like a servant on people. So I'm thinking something along cafeteria aid, dietary aid, along those lines as far as considering her for internship.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lynn, what about you? What do you think about Angelina? Would you accept her to be a candidate or not, and why?
I think she would have issues because she's a non-reader. And then definitely the limited math skills. I guess it depends on really where she's going to go. But I agree that she could probably set a timer and learn to take her medications with practice by herself. I agree that it's good that she likes to help people. And if she's going to work in a healthcare setting, then maybe something like an assistant that would refill water, maybe would just pick up or sweep a room, clean a room like that, get things for patients or whatever, just that general assistance. That might be a good fit for her. But I think definitely the reading skills are going to be a problem, but she would definitely be worth giving a chance. Yes.
Yeah.
May I jump in? This is Cheryl. I'd like to jump in.
Sure.
I would have some reservations about accepting this young lady in the program because of a number of issues. The fact that she gets support from an aide, which talks about a lack of level of independence. And when you have our students training basically independently 5 hours a day in a hospital 5 days a week, and this is someone that needs assistance in a number of different avenues, she doesn't have transportation. So I would have some reservations. There'd have to be a number of things to be worked out. Travel training for one, if she's able to even get to a bus line and travel independently to and from. She has some challenges with gait, balance, and stamina. So again, to be able to work 5 hours a day, training 5 days a week could be a challenge. So there'd be a number of things that would have to take place before I would say that she'd be a good candidate for the program.
So keep what Cheryl just said in mind. A number of things would have to be worked out before. Think about if we had known Angelina in her freshman year or sophomore year.
There you go.
Knew that she wanted to come.
Yes.
Wow, we'd have a lot of opportunity, wouldn't we, Cheryl?
Yes. You'd have that time to work with her. And depending on how old she is, I mean, she might need to be the 5th, 6th year senior before entering the program because she's getting a lot of support from people in terms of academics and ability to do basic living kinds of things. So I need to close the door. Here my kiddos are coming in.
Hope, what's your thoughts about Angelina?
I agree with Cheryl. I would have some reservations because she does still have a lot of support and doesn't appear to be able to be independent, especially at least in the short term. It would take some time to develop those skills. The physical disability that she has, gait and balance and stamina, with the areas that she would be able to work in as a non-reader would be a challenge, a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I go back to what else could we do to prep her, especially if maybe we had an extra year or so. What could we think about for that physical side of her life? What might we put in place?
And that's where VR could come in.
Oh.
And we have the training center, and we would work on that stamina. We would also possibly work on our reading skills or math skills, this basic counting, but definitely doing things like that, and then learning that independence.
Yeah, I think she sounds like a very ideal candidate. It's just that, if she's not, if this is her final year of high school, like you said, if we had known this a little bit more ahead of time, we could have kind of worked through some of these barriers. I think it would be a little bit hard to this summer before to do it all, but I do think it's possible because we've had a lot of non-readers, that have worked at different sites. And, with the whole physical that affects for gait and balance, just thinking about any kind of little accommodations that might need to be made. But, we've had people in wheelchairs work at different sites and people with visual impairments and stuff. So I do think, but having the no working vehicle, but if they live near a bus line and there was, somebody that could do the training, that would be great. But it's just getting, just getting her prepped, making sure there was enough time before the internship. I feel like she wouldn't look like an ideal candidate at the time that she applied or during even at skills assessment. But I do think based on this, she would be somebody great for the program. It's just, there are a lot of factors to be taken,
Susie, I have a quick question. So think of this outside of Angelina right now, but when you go to put something together, like a piece of furniture or something, do you read the words or do you look at the pictures? Raise your hand if you read the words. Raise your hand if you read the pictures.
I look at the pictures too.
Well, I do both. Reading is
You look at the
fundamental.
picture, and if you can't figure it out, then you read the words.
Yeah.
No, that's what I do, Lynn. So
Yeah.
is it a problem that she can't read?
No, because I think that you could do enough cues like, or, have enough little, things in the hospital if she were to need them. Like little accommodations.
There's lots of picture, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of the reading. We have non-readers.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a concern for me. Even with the math, it was a number of other factors.
Yeah, I heard that as a concern, and that's I hope it's not a concern, because I always look at the pictures first, because I do not want to read those directions.
I think it's all of those. I mean, it's everything combined. It's not only that she's a non-reader and has limited math skills, but it's that, as well as the lack of independence at the time of application.
Exactly.
Like they said earlier, that if she was interested in the program in the 9th grade in her freshman year, there would be time to develop and enhance some of these skills, and it wouldn't be an issue when she's a senior.
Good points.
Something else I noticed is it wouldn't be something that would stop you from letting somebody into the program, but it says that they qualify for government assistance. And my suggestion would be, if we do bring this student in really early on, to have a benefit specialist or someone talking to the student and the family about what that looks like, so that we don't get to the end of the program and then the parents say they don't want the kid to work because they're worried about losing benefits, without having the full picture of really understanding that. We see that a lot, especially if maybe it doesn't seem like a lot of other people in the family work, and financially they may be scared to lose that check instead of having the student work. So just making sure they really understand what that looks like.
Thanks, Jenny. That's really important. And I also think mom's just got a ton on her plate. And it says, mom would support Angelina, but she just can't see. Like, she just can't imagine it. So I think mom might need some support as well. I'm not saying like hang out with her, but, what can we do to engage the mom to help her get Angelina on the right path?
Or maybe Family Connections as well could be a good resource for her to get some additional support for her and her family.
Right.
Because on paper, it looks like it would be challenging, but to me, that's the point. Like, we're going to have that sometimes. And these are some of the people that we want to try to really serve, because they don't always have these same opportunities. And like, while reading this, but then the one box that says they have no working vehicle, but they live near a bus line, like immediately I'm like, okay, she has transportation. What can we do?
Absolutely. Yep. All right, let's go down to Art. Art's a little different. So Art's kind of the geeky kid. He likes IT. He isn't really comfortable in special ed. So you've probably had those kids before that don't acknowledge that they have a disability, and they're fairly resistant. So anyway, what are your thoughts about Art? We can scroll down and look at the questions, Joy. That would be great. All right. So what are some key issues that are going to affect his ability to transition to employment?
Susie, he reminded me of a combination of 2 interns I had back in Wisconsin. With the social stuff, we are absolutely not doing him any favors by not telling him that he's annoying people or people don't like him, because he's not going to learn from that. Whatever he's doing that's causing people not to like him, is just going to keep doing that in another work setting. And that's a hard conversation to have with a student, an intern, or anybody. But there was a young man we worked with that, we had to sit down and be like, Austin, like, you have, everyone is having some issues, and let's stop and talk about why that is, because he really wanted friends. He really wanted to socialize, but he was doing some things that was causing people not to want to socialize with him. And if we don't stop and really break that down, have that uncomfortable conversation with him, he's not going to learn how to change that up so he can have the relationships that he wants. So everyone's done him a disservice to hide that from him in his life and not help him figure out how to adjust that.
Right. Have you guys done anything with behavior mapping? I just learned about it. I'm sure it's not a new concept, but a new concept to me. One of our teachers was kind of showing me about it. One of our teachers in Massachusetts uses it all the time. It's kind of like what you said, we're just describing, Jenny, just really trying to point out what are the expected and unexpected consequences of your behavior, and helping students to see kind of from the inside and the internally and externally how that happens. And it was fascinating. Okay. I agree, Jenny. We need to be, but it is hard to have that conversation, right? Nobody likes to hear that, hey, I thought you were my friend, but you were just kind of pretending to be my friend. What else? What other challenges is he going to have that we need to address?
Challenges being with the other interns if he doesn't feel like he totally fits in with them either, because it sounds just by reading this like he might have a higher skill set. So, you know, if it's a wide variety of people in there, I mean, that's just as much as, you know, I want everybody to get along and be accepting. It might be kind of strange for him. He may not, you know, he may not feel like it's the right environment for him to be in.
Right.
But also with him being too friendly and things like that, especially in the workplace. We had an intern we went through a similar situation, and we just taught that, hey, you know, you need to keep people at arm's length. You know, especially right now, you're supposed to be social distancing. So arm's length, you know, you don't hug people, you don't let them hug you. And we talked more about the business perspective and how in some situations that could be social harassment and things like that.
The arm's length thing is really interesting. That's, I mean, because physically, if you did that, that would be helpful, wouldn't
it? Well, the mental illness piece too, as well, kind of, that would be something I would kind of want to look into a little bit in the process, just because, you know, there was one time I had somebody at my previous job that wanted to join the program, and he was paranoid schizophrenic, and that was so out of my wheelhouse that, like, I didn't want to put myself in that situation, because that's not what I know. So, you know, you don't want to accept people that you can't, you're going to be practicing outside of your scope of what you know and what you're able to do. So you want to make sure, like, is this, what by mental illness, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Except that if we did that every time we couldn't accept a kid because you didn't have the expertise, what other specialists could we bring in?
True. Yeah.
Like on our team, we have a psych nurse, which is great, because she has a lot of helpful hints for us for teams that have those kind of challenges. Or do you have a special behavior therapist in your school? Or
I mean, I'm trying to think personally, Susie, I think this would be a good place for me to kind of reach out and look into this a little bit more, because just in the field that since I've been in for quite a while, the two didn't usually go hand in hand. A lot of the times it was more behavioral, intellectual, physical disabilities, but the whole mental, you know, was a whole other ballgame. Like, they didn't usually seem to go hand in hand. So, I mean, it's definitely, because I do know that, you know, people with disabilities, they have comorbid conditions, and you will see mental health stuff, which is fine. But if it's something more extreme, like, you know, bipolar depression or a paranoid schizophrenic, I would want to make sure that everybody was prepared for that. Because when I first met this guy, when he came in, I mean, the paranoia was just, it was crazy. Like, it was just something I had never experienced before. So I knew myself in that position, I couldn't have him in my class because I would be practicing outside of my scope. So unfortunately here, I don't know if that's something I would really like to look into, because you do see it more often than not.
We had somebody this year that came into our program and has just started showing signs at the end of last year, in the beginning of this year. And I'm not sure if he was even showing signs before he exited school or left school last spring, because we were in the COVID. And I don't know if that played a part in this, but we had him a month and we started seeing signs of talking to people, looking at people, doing some hand motions and things. And we did not have any kind of diagnosis like that at all in the folder. So we called his mom, and she said he had been seeing a counselor, but they had never told the school. So I don't know, maybe some of this stuff had presented before. He did have a post-traumatic stress disorder. That was not put, though. That's not what he was being serviced by in special ed. He has an intellectual disability plus the post-traumatic stress. And so we met as a team, and we met with the parent, and we had the behavioral health counselor from the high school come out, and she would meet with him every week. And we ended up at that point because they had just kind of started treating him for some of these behaviors with his counseling, but the mother was not being real faithful in getting him there. And so we got all that hooked back up and things done, but we did send him back to school for the rest of this year, and he reapplied.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was the same guy. Okay,
and
awesome.
He did really well the rest of the year, and I think he's more leveled out now. In fact, he just got Student of the Year at our Career Center.
Yeah, so he was in Project Search. Back. Yeah, like he was in Project Search, but they ended up having to let him go just because of all of these issues. But yeah, I heard that is amazing. Like everybody was really, he was one that was discussed a lot as skills assessment day because people had, their apprehensions but apparently because of like the strides that he made over the year and getting all his meds balanced and everything like that, they said yes, they took him back and they wanted him again for this year. So that was definitely really cool to see.
Yeah, well, it had affected, like in his internships, it had affected one department, said he can't come back, so we tried him somewhere else.
Sure.
He can't come back. And so and then he had an incident on the lunch break one day. So it was just, and then it just seemed like we thought at first he might've just been nervous or the different environment. So we were trying different things, and we had the behavioral health counselor already coming because of that. And that maybe the extra stress was just causing some issues, but
sure.
We'll see. We took him back. I mean, the team took him back. I didn't say I was not there that day, but
it was a lot. It was a back and forth discussion, but I mean, I was happy to see that happen just because people can grow over time. You can't, you don't want to just like.
Well, he had applied last year too, and he didn't get in. I had encouraged him to apply again. We just felt like last year, well, for the first year of the program in 1920. No, 2021. I don't know. I can't. But anyway, he did not get in the first year we had the program. And I had encouraged him to reapply because he was like on the borderline. He was not going to turn 18 till right before it started. And I just felt like there was some maturity that he needed to do. And, and go through one more school year. And he did that, and he did everything we asked him to do. So when he applied for this school year, we took him. And then when we ran into some problems that we had no idea we really didn't know they were going on.
Yeah.
And nobody at the school had seen some of it. So then that confused us more. So when we took him out in October, he didn't last right at about a month. And so when our suggestion was for him to really get into the counseling and make sure that everything was straight, and let's see how he does in school. We even wondered if the environment was just too much of an overload. And expectations were stressing him to the point he was displaying these behaviors. But he's done well, and he really wanted to come back. So we'll start all over again with him.
Well, the instructor immediately said, she was like, I want him. Like as soon as that, and I thought that was a great sign that the instructor herself was like, I want him like back and everything like that. So it was definitely.
Yeah. Sometimes when you have an instructor that really, hits an intern can hit a chord with them.
Yeah.
can be a great relationship. And we just always have to remember those HR issues of harassment and keep all those issues in mind as we go through with the different interns, and making sure that if we do take them on, that we do take that year to make sure that we're managing those different scenarios that can happen.
Hey,
So we're
Joy,
gonna
I
move on.
wondered if you would address number 3 there, because, you certainly had that happen when Art was asking, thinking about asking somebody out on a date.
Yes, and so that is something that we just have to be very clear with, when an intern become, when there's an interest between graduates and interns, or because now think about if you have a situation where an intern, a project search intern, is working with a project search graduate. It's a great relationship on one hand, but those lines can become blurry again on the other hand. So one of the things that you really want to do is make sure that if they're having, if they want to have a relationship outside of the workday, that's one reason that having that independence and travel training, if they can, if that's something that they can do on their own time, but it becomes really a sticky situation when it happens during the workday. So that's one of the things that we want to be really careful about, and really want to acknowledge and talk clearly about. And our new curriculum that's in the member portal really addresses some of these issues, and I would encourage you to use that if you haven't already. Catherine McLaughlin has put together an actual curriculum for Project Search, and if you haven't used it, I encourage you to use it. You don't have to use all of it, but you can pick out what is important. Especially, it could really be able to help you target some specific behaviors that you might be having with a cohort that you have. So keep those that curriculum in mind when coming across situations like that. And it's really good to review it all before the situation arises, so you know that there is something that can address that.
There's 2 lessons in particular that we think are really, really helpful. There's one on levels of relationships, everything from strangers to sweethearts. And then the other lesson that is really good is public versus private. And you might have to, as Joy said, do those a couple times. The public versus private is kind of, what can I do in public with a sweetheart or, boyfriend, girlfriend, and what can I do in public, and what can I do in private? Public is work, right? So everything that, when they talk about public, that's at work. I might have told this story before, I apologize, but I was listening to Catherine give this lesson with a group of interns from Florida. And she asked the question about where can you kind of like hold hands or maybe even kiss a boyfriend or a girlfriend? And somebody said, well, a library is a private place. Well, I understand why they think that. It's quiet. There's lots of kind of stacks of books, and it might seem private, but it's not private. So really helping our students understand the difference. And again, public places, I mean, there really aren't very many private places when you think about it. Even your house, because they might live with their mom and dad, it's not really totally private. So those are really good. So we're going to go back to the PowerPoint, and we're going to do one more discussion. And this one is kind of flipped. So this one is going to think about, instead of challenges, let's think about it from kind of the opposite direction. And let's think about what would happen if you had all the resources that were available to you, everything that you could ever want for a young person. And what would you need? What would you want for, if we think about a student with complex medical needs? Let's start with that one. What kinds of resources, and I'm just going to go across my screen right now, and I'm just going to, so Hannah, you're first in my screen. If you had a student with complex medical needs, what's the first thing you would try to access or use? No, just pretend money's not an issue.
Well, I would look specifically at some of their medical needs and determine whether or not I needed to bring in another person, like Diane, what you were saying earlier, that has expertise in that. So I guess it just depends on their situation. I don't have a direct answer.
Okay, let's pretend that person had pretty intense seizures, but he wanted to be in Project Search, and otherwise he thought maybe he could work, but he had a lot of seizures and they were pretty severe.
If money was not an option, I would want to talk to the family and potentially look at, I'm a big fan of service animals.
Oh.
And so I think that especially with seizures, depending on his disability or illness that causes the seizures, that could be an avenue to look at.
Huh. Okay, that's cool. My head was not going there. Neat idea. Tina, you're next in my line of sight.
I guess if money was no option, besides bringing someone, well, to me, I would have to know what to look for when it would occur, so I would know how to respond. So I guess, I don't know, I would really, just my opinion, I would really consider, would that be a good candidate?
Okay.
Because, in a hospital, just for instance, because I work in a hospital setting, I say it in this way, just out of anywhere, a person begins to have a seizure, would that be, acceptable to them as a working environment? Because they're our host business, so we have to look out for what fits best for the employer versus the employee also. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
Okay. Let's switch it up and say that this person has, oh shoot, I just had the PowerPoint up. Spina bifida, and they're using a power chair. What resources would you try to tap, or use or need? Lynn, you're next. You're muted.
I guess if we had money to do so and we could have people join our team, I'd find out if if there's any kind of PTOT and if that is a need. Also vendor, or like we have rehab tech that can assist with what the consumers need for jobs or for their homes. And so things like that would be definitely something that would benefit.
Okay, I love the PTOT idea. Lynn, are you a VR counselor?
I am.
I want you to be my VR counselor because you're like full of great ideas.
Thank you.
We need a Lynn on every team because they've got all kinds of cool stuff happening.
We have to make it work for these kids.
That's right. That is right. Let's say that this young man has pretty complex, or young woman, mental health needs. Hope, you're next in my view. And I love your background, by the way.
Thank you.
Is that are you really there, or is that a background?
It's a background.
It's really pretty.
Thank you. So I would, like you guys said earlier, maybe include a psychiatric nurse on our team to help with that, or our director of behavioral health, who would be able to address or help us or address some of those issues. And I would also add in some educational training for any instructor, staff, everybody that's involved with the intern.
I hope you're the first person that kind of said that. It's like, well, maybe we need the training.
That's
Well,
true.
maybe the kid doesn't need the training. Maybe we do. Because I know that in some ways I feel very blessed because I've been in this field a long time and I have a lot of knowledge, but I don't always have the new knowledge that people coming right out of school have. And that's why I was so excited the other day. I got to be on a call with this teacher that knew all about this behavior mapping. I never even heard of it. So, I hope your comment about, training is really, really important. Jenny just said we can always learn new things. And Jenny's like 10. Like, what does she know?
I'm a little older than 10.
I know you're older. I'm sorry, I'm teasing Jenny.
Not much.
She's absolutely adorable, though. All right, let's do one more. What about somebody that has complex communication needs? We actually had a young lady one year when we first started Project Search that was a selective mute. She hadn't talked since the 8th grade to anyone except her mother. What would you do? I know, Lynn, look at Lynn's face like, oh my gosh. What would you do in a case like that? Jenny, you're next in my...
Well, I guess I would find out how the individual communicates with other people. Because obviously she's still communicating in some way if she's not speaking, right? So, and then finding out how she communicates that and finding maybe internships that communication is not the key thing, so maybe this person's not greeting the people as they're walking into your hospital, right? But there's lots of places where communication could be done in alternate ways other than just speaking, and making sure that, her her supervisors and coworkers know how her preferred communication is. And I would always still allow her the opportunity to speak if she wanted to, give her opportunities to practice that if she chose to do it. But I would still say there's probably plenty of places in a hospital or any other internship setting where we could still have her, as long as she's communicating in some fashion. If she's writing, maybe she does communicates with the technology where she could type something and it would speak for her. I was just in some trainings this week where the young man has autism and he's not selective, so he's slower with his communication and he has text to speak devices and things. So if we're saying money is not an issue, there's lots of technology out there to communicate in other ways than just speaking. So
you're right. You're right.
We have deaf people that we work with all the time who have to communicate in other ways if you don't sign. So there's ways around that.
Yeah. I think the big caveat to that is make sure that the young person is excited about using the technology that you've chosen. Because sometimes we choose it and they don't. And they're like, I'm not using that thing. Like,
absolutely.
They get involved. Because as Jenny said, there's so many options. Hopefully there's something that they will be willing to use and learn. Cheryl, you're next. What about somebody with complex communication needs?
Which one?
I'm sorry, Cheryl Johnson, and then Ann, and then Cheryl Gadsden.
Okay. We actually have a young lady this year with severe communication issues. And we have visitors yesterday, and she's never hesitant to speak, even though it does take her a while. But one of the things she shared about Project Search was the fact that she feels so accepted, that nobody judges, that everyone takes the time to allow her to get out what she has to say. Because I was a speech pathologist initially in my first career, and she's probably one of the most disfluent students that I've encountered in all the years that I worked. But to hear her say that, I kind of got a little choked up, because to share that information. So I really think part of it is being patient allowing them the opportunity to communicate, and the best mode of communication that they're able to communicate in is critical.
Yeah, you're right. So sometimes it's our own prejudices and actions that could either prohibit or make our students feel really accepted into that. I can see Hope's face kind of like, yeah, that would, it's up to us sometimes, isn't it? Anne, what about any of these young people that we've talked about? What else would you bring to your program to help somebody who had more compounding factors? What about somebody that's homeless?
Ooh, that was a tough one. I think you're gonna definitely have to do some kind of travel training and probably assistance with if they stay. We've had somebody that was not homeless all the time, but the year before they came into the program, they had been evicted several times from where they lived. And there was one point in time he was in a hotel with his mom. You got to build some more support systems other than those maybe that are within the household, because most of the reasons for the evictions tied into his mom, and he really was trying to take care of his mom. Now he's a supervisor in the EVS.
Wow.
But it was a journey.
That's amazing.
He came to, you probably met him, Diane. He came down on skills assessment day.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think I did. Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So anyway, and we just had to make sure, because I was real worried that when he got hired about the getting there, the problem, but he kept having somebody be able to bring him. But there were times that he came to events, that they all came to events, and twice I ended up taking them home. Because whoever they had set up to come get them, one was graduation of last year. So then I was really nervous about when he went to work, making sure. So we offered to go ahead and do some more travel training stuff. And we were doing that on an individual basis, but this year we're going to try to do something different and do it as a whole group. We just don't have, I think you have to communicate with your departments. Like if somebody's real interested in certain areas, no matter what, with all these kids, you've got to be able to communicate with those supervisors and your host business, other than just your representative that's on the team that you know when you choose them. But we've got to really start looking out. Okay, so right now we know we have these departments and these jobs. Is this kid going to need a whole different department or a whole different job? Are you going to have to do any job carving? If somebody has selective mutism, you don't want to put them in a department where they have to talk to tons of people all day. It's not just our training, but we've got to look at what the expectations are of our host business and our departments, and whether or not it's feasible to do accommodations and modifications in those areas. Like McLeod is huge, and so somebody with the stamina issue or the gait problem, we brought somebody to skills assessment day, and we're still interested in them possibly next year, but we probably will have to find a department that is fairly close to where the classroom is and where the lunchroom is, because of that issue, because it spreads out so far. I'm not sure she could make it all the way across campus. So I think you just have to look at all of it. You don't just look at what we're doing in the classroom. It has to branch out to what are the expectations there on the job, and what do you have available, and what this, including, is it a large facility, or is it somewhere they would just basically be in one room, or a smaller place to have to walk and move around. And I think that too, that particular student has a gait problem and seizures. And so that's a concern. But we had somebody last year with orthopedic issues, and the team was really accepting. We didn't have anything at the host business that would be conducive to what they were interested in and what they needed. And so we're still working on those things and still branching out a little bit, but we've done some job carving for they got put into a budget, a part-time job. You have to look at all of it.
Right, Ann.
Susie, I just wanted to tell you too really quick about, this was actually one site in particular when I went to skills assessment day. There was one girl that when they asked her what she wanted to do in the future for her career, she said she wanted to be a social worker, and they asked her why. And she said, because I've lived in foster care my whole life. So, you know, and social workers who have helped me my whole life. So that's what I want to do. And, you know, we went back and forth because she had a pretty high skill set, but we thought that she could really benefit. But we knew that it was also, we'd have to look at the transportation piece. What kind of support does she have, you know, in her foster home and everything? And on the same site, one of the new interns has a 1-year-old. So we have an intern that has a child. So we had to take that into consideration too, and look at, you know, what's happening at home. Is there proper child care? If she's going to be on the interns, you know, if she's going to be at the internship site, is her child taken care of? And like, you know, so it seems like there's a lot of like different obstacles to face.
Sure. And I think Ann was correct in that you have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, totally.
Cheryl Gadsden a chance to say anything, and I'm so sorry. Cheryl, you want to pop in with some strategies or ideas or thoughts?
Yes, hello everyone. I was just sitting back listening to everyone, and I know with the communication part, the child with the communication part, because you know, we work with a lot of students that have a difficult time communicating. I would say, and my suggestion would be assistive technology. If she's limited and she doesn't speak well, my focus would be more or less getting her to speak. What technology do I need to make sure that this child has so that she can communicate effectively, feel confident in communicating? And then also with me being a counselor or anyone else that she's working with, educating myself on, okay, how can I help this student to better communicate her needs, her wants, in order for her to be successful, you know, when trying to help her to gain employment. And then I know they said something about the homeless child. I work with students too that are homeless, and it's just, you know, giving them the necessary resources, the places where they can go, or even, you know, me or someone else, you know, just being that advocate for them, helping them to, you know, find housing or what have you. And then, you know, like I said, many of them don't have the resources. They don't know the resources to use. So that's where we have to come in and make sure that we're educating them on what it is, you know, on the different places that they can, you know, contact, or putting them in contact with to help them along the way.
Yep. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to Joy really quick. Joy's going to I'll bring the PowerPoint up, Joy.
Okay.
Joy's going to talk about next steps. Maybe.
So I can just start talking about them while you're pulling it up.
See them? I'm sorry. I thought it's on my screen. I don't know why, because I didn't hit share. That's why.
Oh, you got it?
Yes.
So next steps, as you all are, you've had so many great ideas over the last few moments, and if you can just choose 2 to 3 transition strategies to strengthen your program, and then make sure to include those in your steering committee conversations. A lot of times those steering committee meetings turn into just updates about the interns. We really want those to be meetings where you're striving for continuous improvement. That's really an important part of this. I'm sorry I'm so far away from my screen, but my 90-pound dog is underneath my desk and I can't get close to it. So use the ideas generated from your scenario, our scenarios and your scenarios to create plans for future interns. That's a great way to plan for the future. You probably know your interns for next year at this point, and so you want to make sure that you're using the ideas that we've talked about for those interns. And then find ways to tie the information to recruitment and selection activities. Again, that may be something that you're in the middle of, and you might be able to implement those ideas right away, or you might have to wait till next year. But just at least try to write them down. Maybe put an invitation on your calendar. I do that sometimes if I want to remember something at this time next year. I'll just put an invitation out there to myself, type it up with as much detail as possible, because I forget a lot of things. So I want to make sure I've got details in there and how I want to implement it. And then it'll pop up and you'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot that I remembered.
Great idea.
And then make sure that when you're creating PowerPoints for your families that you're showing those different devices and different techniques that you're using for those really difficult students, because that might give a family hope that their child can be successful in Project Search if you're showing some of those ways that you really helped intern with, some really difficult situations. So just take everything that we talked about and kind of roll it up into where you can fit it into your program, just to make your program even better than it is already.
And I wanted to you to think about, like, what's the big idea that you're leaving with today? I know one of mine is, I think what Hope said about we need learning too. It's not just about what training we can give other people, but what we need to learn ourselves. And sometimes it's learning from each other. And I really appreciated some of your strategies that you shared today about, especially in the last little bit, about things that have worked for students and assistive technology, and the different things that the two VR counselors shared were wonderful. So thank you. It's 2:30 and it's Friday, so you probably want to go. But we really appreciate your time and attention. I've really gotten to know some of you over the last couple months when we've been training together, and maybe someday we can see each other in person. So thank you, Joy, for helping, and
thank you for inviting me.
Everybody for attending. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.